Hi everyone, for today's featured ship we're going to be checking out the Hilda. This charming little vessel is emblematic of the scores of small cross-channel steamers that shuttled about early last century. The Hilda was the third in a series of three sister ships for the London and South Western Railway Company. Completed in 1883, the Hilda's statistics are as follows. The ship weighed 848 gross tons, was 235 feet long, which equates to about 71 meters, had a beam of 29 feet, which equates to about 8 meters, and its compound steam engines could power a single propeller at a decent speed of 14 knots. For a ship of modest dimensions, it could accommodate 566 passengers and was operated by a crew of 28. The Hilda was originally employed on the Southampton, Jersey, St. Malo service, but in 1890 it was replaced by another ship called the Stella, and so instead the Hilda was re-employed to do an express run between Southampton and St. Malo. And it did this reliably for the next 15 years. On the 17th of November 1905, the Hilda encountered extreme weather. It was so rough that the ship had to anchor and pause the voyage until the weather moderated. Unfortunately, when they got underway again in what they thought was a pocket of calm, turned out to be false hope. That pocket of calm became an even stronger storm, and the ship was fighting to get to St. Malo. By the following day, the ship tried multiple times to enter the harbour, and on one occasion, as it was trying to enter the harbour, the weather just got too extreme and the ship ended up smashing into rocks. The storm was so violent that the ship was snapped in two within 15 minutes. Some lifeboats were launched, but with the weather conditions being so extreme, they were either smashed apart or capsized. The remaining survivors clambered up onto the rigging of the aftermast, which stayed above the surface, and the freezing conditions of that night meant that by the following day, when rescue vessels came to their aid, there were only 6 survivors, 5 passengers and 1 crewman. There had been 131 passengers and crew on board. More than half had been what were known as onion johnnies, onion sellers from Brittany that had gone over to the UK to sell their distinctive pink onions, and these 75 men had now been on their way back home, and sadly most of them never returned. The wreck of the Hilda was one of the worst involving cross-channel steamers. The ship that succeeded it, the Stella, would go on to also sink with the loss of over 100 lives. And in terms of lives lost, off the Hook of Holland, the Berlin went down with 140 lives. The wreck of the Hilda would eventually be smashed apart by the wind and the waves. However, the propeller, battered as it was salvaged and was used for a monument which can now be seen. And in 2005, for the centenary of the wreck, memorial services were held, flowers and a ring of onions were deposited on the wreck site to commemorate all those that had been lost. As anyone can appreciate, the English Channel can be a brutal place, particularly when the storms are at their worst. And in the case of the Hilda, the storm was so severe that this steel ship had been ripped apart within 15 minutes, and only 6 were able to live to tell the tale. Not much in terms of print is available, and I only learnt of the Hilda by pure coincidence when I was flicking through this book, Merchant Fleets, volume 24 by Duncan Hawes, which had an entry into this ship as well as its sisters. Hopefully one day the full account of this ship will be published, but until then we have this video, we have Duncan Hawes' entry, and we have a scattering of information available online. And I hope this will inspire to at least research and learn more about these valiant little steamers that braved the savage seas to service communities in the English Channel.